My name's Joe Keyport, and you're listening to the Ear Coffee Podcast. For this week's episode, I talked to three members of the band Vin about their debut record, Granule. The record was released in early September and blends elements of post-hardcore and progressive rock. It serves as a brighter, more hopeful answer to the band's first two releases. If you love loud music, you'll absolutely love this record. It's Vin, right here on the Ear Coffee Podcast. So today I'm joined by Gordon, Wyatt, and Jason of the band Vin. How are you guys doing today?
Excellent.
Partying hard.
A lot of rock horns. Appreciate you joining me here on this Saturday. I know Wyatt's been awake since 6 a.m. so he can catch soccer or football for the purists. Let's start off here. Tell me a little bit about y'all's history with music. I always like to know when people started getting into music and when it went from the bedroom to playing in front of people and playing loud music. So yeah, you want to start there? I don't know if you guys want to just figure out who wants to go first or...
Oldest to youngest. Wyatt.
Okay. Fuck you. I'm band dad. I started playing bass, I think, spring of 2001. When I was in 5th grade, my parents gave me an ultimatum. It was like, you're going to learn an instrument. And it's a Hard Times article. I was like, well, bass seems easier than piano, drums, and guitar, so I'm going to play bass. I ultimately did learn how to play guitar and drums. So I was just, dinking around, taking lessons. Played in some shitty high school bands that aren't worth mentioning. And then the first band I was in that was actually half decent was in 2015. I joined the Way Away. They are a now defunct local pop punk band, and we peaked when we played Warped Tour on the Ernie Hall stage.
Oh, hell yeah.
And then quit that band because I wanted to play bass rather than drums. I was in a group called Psychic Stare that did stuff but never really went anywhere, and then I quit that band to do Vin, and then later Charlie Doesn't Surf. That's what I'm doing now. And I got into music. The thing that made me want to play music was my parents were playing the Rick Springfield Greatest Hits album when I was like 9 years old in the house, and I went to see him at a county fair, and I was like, that's cool, I'm going to do that.
Nice.
And here I am. I started playing Rick Springfield, and now all I do is listen to Dance Gavin Dance and try to write chug riffs. So that's my story.
Jason or Gordon?
I suppose I'm the next in line. So I started playing guitar when I was like just before I turned 18. So it's been 11 years now. I remember going up to go deer hunting with my father, and we stopped at Best Buy on our way, and he bought me Black Sabbath self-titled full length, and we listened to that, and I'm like, oh my god, Anthony Iommi is incredible.
It's a dangerous record to give a child.
So yeah. I thought that was pretty cool. So got my first guitar and took lessons for about a month, hated lessons, and was like, I'll just self-teach. And yeah.
Okay.
That's where I'm at. What got me into loud music, I was in this really shitty scene band called Broken City Skies. Dare I mention them? And then after that, I was in Infinite Me for a short while, and then took a hiatus from that, ended up not going back, and Jason and I started Vin.
Okay. And then Jason?
Yeah. I started playing. I started on bass when I was in the 7th grade, so I think I was about 12 years old. My brother had been playing guitar for a few years prior, which kind of inspired me to want to play as well. And bought my first bass. It was a combo bass and amp from Dean, just a shitty beginner bass. But my brother and I had a collection for buying an Xbox, and I convinced him to let me take that money to buy a bass. So thanks for that, Garrett. But so I started on bass, played that for a while, and then transitioned to noodling around with guitar a bit at that time, and then ended up picking up drums from playing Rock Band, because I was like, yeah, drums are fun. And my brother kind of forced me into playing drums so we could start a band together. And we did that pretty heavily throughout my high school career and whatnot up until the last few years. So I'd been playing shows since I was 14 years old or so. And then had been playing guitar intermittently while doing all that. And then just kind of really focused heavily on guitar after high school or just after high school. And so try to keep up with all three, drums, guitar, and bass. But I spend most of my time playing guitar. And it's kind of led us to where we are now.
Okay. So when did Vin form? Like, what was the year Vin started?
Yeah, Gordy and I met. Well, Gordy and I met each other. Yeah, officially Vin started in 2016, but Gordy and I had connected, I believe, in 2015. It was me, Gordy, and our mutual friend Taylor, who was playing drums. They needed a bass player, so Gordy, I don't really know how. I think Taylor reached out to me, and then we kind of just jammed, and we had a good time. And then we had kind of jammed back and forth a few times after that, but kind of fell away for a little while. And then, Gordy and I came back together in like early 2016 and kind of started it back up again, and reached out to who I knew, Jake, our drummer from high school, and it just kind of formed a beautiful relationship from there.
Okay. And Wyatt, you weren't the original bassist for Vin. You kind of came in when you came in 2018 then?
Yeah, I started jamming with them late 2018. The first bassist, Nick Bolton, was also a good friend of mine. I'd known him for a couple of years. He played on the first two EPs, did really great stuff. So I was learning his parts in 2019, and we had a couple songs off Grant that were, I think it was one or two of them. I think Sunburst and one other that were pretty much done.
Quiet.
With Nick. Quiet was the other. Those two were pretty much done with Nick, but then as I was onboarded, I kind of did my own thing with it, and it, became a thing. I'm not really answering. I don't know if you even had a question. I'm just kind of speaking on being. But no, I actually was almost the original bassist in Vin.
Oh, really?
But yes. I was talking to Gordy. He was probably of Minnesota Music. I just responded to a post or something. I had never met him in person, or if I had, I didn't remember. But I couldn't get out to Anoka because I did not drive at the time. But as of 1 week ago today,
you have a car.
I am a real boy now.
Hey.
So I can drive places, but. Yeah, and it didn't work out at the time, but that's great because, like I said before, Nick did a great job. I respect him, what he got Vin going, and yeah, I'm just happy to be a part of it now.
Okay. Initially, since those early formation of Vin, were you all writing collaboratively, or did someone have like a bunch of songs that kind of as a songwriter or person who plays music, you always, if you write, you typically kind of have that like GarageBand folder or whatever DAW you use that's just full of like demo ideas and whatever. Was that around before Vin started, or did you start writing pretty collaboratively right away?
Yeah, it was pretty collaborative. I mean, Gordy and I really found that we just kind of locked in with each other's style. Like, it was really, we kind of kept saying that we were like guitar soulmates because we just like really locked in with the kind of vibe that we were both, I guess, going for. Big love for pedals and delays and reverbs and stuff. So that was like a big mutual thing. And then just like a lot of like
love for the Deftones.
Yeah. I mean, Vin was
we basically want to be a Deftones cover band at this point.
when Gore came out in 2016, Gordy and I were just like obsessed with that album. So we were just like writing riffs that were like, we want to be like Deftones, but like do our own thing. So it was like, it was pretty collaborative. I think the first EP for sure, the self-titled, was a real just like mix of Gordy and I writing riffs, and then just kind of a lot of the songs had been written, or some of the riffs had been written with just Gordy and I, and then with Jake on drums, they kind of took a different shape as we got more dynamics and stuff added to it. But
so what was that kind of like that vibe you were going for in those early? Because like listening through your catalog, I've noticed that like a lot of that earlier, like the earlier Vin stuff was much more post-hardcore kind of influence. Not to say that like Granule isn't, but like I found that a lot of it was like a lot of the tones were a little more aggressive. There was a lot more shouting and kind of the more dirtier vocals. Was that kind of, what was that, especially coming from other bands you played in? Was that kind of what you were initially trying to shoot for, or?
That sort of angsty stuff, it just kind of happened.
Yeah.
And those two EPs are definitely, for me at least, on the darker side of things.
Mm-hmm.
Without doubt. Like lyrically, they're dark songs.
Yeah.
Yeah. So a lot of that angst came from that, and I don't know, Granule, we kind of leaned away from that sound a little bit, and I don't know, we matured, I guess, a little.
From when we were writing Granule, the parts of it that I was there for, I remember lyrically and musically we were making a very conscious effort, not necessarily to make a happy record,
Mm-hmm.
but to make a lighter record, to make a hopeful record, to make something that's more melody forward. And if you listen to the lyrics, Gordon makes lots of references to the sun, to the light, to growth, to healing.
Yeah.
Because like for the first two EPs, they're great. We still play that
Mm-hmm.
when shows come back. We're still going to play that stuff. Great stuff. But it was just very. It's a lot of self-flagellation on it. At least from as an outside listener to it, that's kind of what I got from it. And then Granules were very much trying to be a little more hopeful
Mm-hmm.
in life.
Yeah. I think adding on to that too, just like musically speaking, it's been a totally unconscious effort as far as our writing is concerned.
Mm-hmm.
From the first
it turned out that way.
Yeah, from the self-titled EP to Bloom to Granule, it was all just like, that's just the vibe we were rocking with. Like Bloom is like super heavy. When Gordy and I like started this band, we were kind of saying we wanted to write heavy music in standard tuning, and that's like still kind of what we stuck by. And
Bloom was in drop D though.
Drop D, yeah. I mean, we kind of went into the drop D section, but the whole idea was to just like try to write like heavy music in like a standard tuning that most maybe heavier bands don't do. Just that transition from the self-titled to Bloom to Granule was all just like over the course of 4 years as a band. A lot of writing. I mean, and a lot of styles that we all listen to and have taken influence from as we've grown as a band and whatnot too. It's just been a really just like natural progression into what Granule is, and the stuff we're writing right now is completely different from that. So it's going to be like going into the next direction is going to be like a real 180 for us. But that's just what we like to do. We don't like to stick by old, kind of keep it fresh.
Yeah, you're gonna stick with the standard. It's not gonna be Vin picks up 9-string instruments and writes knuckle draggers.
They did get 7s, and I bought a 5-string bass. So there's a non-zero possibility that there might be gent Vin at some point.
Hell yeah. I wonder too, because I didn't really realize it until Wyatt. We're friends on Facebook, and over the last like 6-ish months, I just like seeing your like Facebook memory posts of like leading up to the release of the record. Just like they're like, "Hey, this didn't happen 2 years ago, but now it's happening now." I wonder part of it if this evolved as you like spent so much time like working on these songs. So like, take me through the timeline of this record, because this is a record that. Like you said on your social media, and then I've seen more personally, like it's something that has sat for a long time and you've spent a lot of time working on.
Yeah, I think a lot of these songs, these songs date back, like, I mean, some of these ideas are like 3-4 years old. I mean, there's some riffs on the album that are, I like to record on my computer a lot with Logic and GarageBand and stuff, and I've got some riffs from Granule that date back to, like 3 years ago. And a lot of the times it was like, it's tough being in a band with everyone's schedules not aligning all the time. So, what time we did have a lot of the time was practicing for shows, because we, played pretty heavy amount of shows over the last number of years. So you're kind of balancing that, like writing and playing and practicing, keeping tight for shows and whatnot. But then after Nick left, we didn't have a bass player. So that just led Gordy, Jake, and I to just really like lock down and just write a ton of music. And like I said, like a lot of these ideas have just been kind of floating around in the background for a while. And so we just spent that time just really kind of honing them in and writing and going from there.
And maybe I wasn't in the room for the EP writing session, so you guys can correct me if this wasn't the case. But with Granule, with the exceptions of like a song and a half where the bass parts were basically just given to me, the bass was written after the entire rest of the song was completed, save for vocals. So I was just I don't want to say it was inorganic, but it was because it wasn't. I actually really like writing that way because I approach my instrument as kind of color and texture more as a lead thing. Like, it wouldn't make sense for me in these songs to just be shredding all over the place. So I don't think that was really. I don't even want to say the album was delayed. It took as long as it took.
Yeah, and
it was. You finished. Sorry.
No, I was saying, and like trying to force something through, like especially for a debut record, it makes no sense to try and like, all right, we're just gonna bang it out so we can have that record.
Yeah,
yeah.
We recorded 95% of the instrumentals in 2 days last July, 2019, and then when the lyrics and vocals were ready and done, we did them, and now the album's out.
So you worked, like, you did studio time as, like, things were ready. So, like, because I was going to ask later, because you tracked this with Adam Tuckner at, is it Signature Tone?
Yeah.
And that
if
was
you're
all.
in a heavy band, go to him.
And that was all done live, right?
Yeah,
the band cut it on the floor.
100% live, no clicks.
Oh wow!
We spent like. Leading up, we recorded at the end of July of last year, and we spent that entire spring and like beginning of the summer like just hounding those songs. Like, we would come to practice, we'd play the whole album, take a break, play the whole album again. Next practice, do the same thing over and over again. So we really just spent a lot of time just locking in those songs and getting them as tight as possible. And yeah, we did it with no click, and that is like all by and part like the work of Jake. Is just like a machine.
Jake is an unbelievable drummer.
I mean, that dude practiced
Jake's incredible.
Anybody I know, and he really like without like Jake's like the glue that really holds like the band together. Like as far as his like timing and everything is just immaculate. So I think a big part of that was like just having we all practiced together a ton, but by and part like his individual practice really helped keep us all like on time and tight. He is the metronome. We didn't need a click track because we had so.
Two quick tidbits about Jake. He really is one of those people where he does nothing but work and play drums. That's it every single day. And I mean, I'm probably being hyperbolic, but he is super regimented. And I think Adam put on the grid he put a click not into headphones, but he just had one on the grid when we were recording. We looked at it lined up, and I think we maybe got off by like an eighth note by the end of the song.
Wow.
But Jake is just, he's incredible.
I think in that part too, like tracking it live like that, that's how we've done all of our albums. It's just been live 100% on the floor kind of thing. And I think that's the style that works for us. And so it worked on the first EP, it worked on the second EP. And so we were like, why, if it's not broke,
change it.
And that's how we practice. That's what we do. We all practice individually, but that's, how we get what we are. And I think with the live sound too, we kind of like that. It's not polished 100%. Like there's there's going to be maybe some tempo fluctuation, but if we're all on, then it's intentional. And it,
Absolutely. And tracking in a live room, it really allows us to recreate that same sound in a live like venue setting.
Yeah. Because there's always something like a little lame when you hear something on a record and you're like, that's sick, and then you go watch the band live and either they can't do it just themselves or they have to play some track here or there to make up for it. And tracks are fine, but it doesn't feel as organic, for lack of better words, than them actually doing it.
I think off the top of my head, the only thing that wasn't live on Granule was that on Exit Music, Jason overdubbed an acoustic guitar to add a little extra
12-string.
And there's a few moments like that. I mean, we retracked some bass for Wyatt and just
to do so I could use 4 different basses on one song. Just little tonal things. Ooh, this fill is too bright on the original. Let me do it with a fretless. We're tone nerds like that.
Yeah.
But 98% of the instrumentals on that album were first or second take live.
Okay. So how many, because you said you did all of the initial track, instrumental tracking within 2 days in the studio. How many times did you come back to do some other things? Vocals was done another day and...
Vocals was done in, what,
April?
2 days?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you did it in a couple of single-day sessions over
in a course of
months.
4 hours altogether, I think.
Yeah, I remember I came in and did mine in 2 hours the weekend after Memorial Day. You picked me up. We went down there. So that's when it was pretty much finished. And I think you had a couple other things after that maybe, but that was pretty much was done.
I think that was the final session.
That was the final session, the Thursday right after Memorial Day. And that finished it.
Okay. Yeah. So I want to talk a little bit about the themes on this record. You mentioned a little earlier that you wanted to write something a little brighter than the self-titled and Bloom, something a little, I should not less, maybe not brighter, but lighthearted. I was just listening through the record the last week or so, and when you put it out now a month ago, almost to the day from when this interview is being recorded in October, the songs really I feel like they switch perspective between a first person kind of talking about their inner monologue and almost other people reacting to that monologue. Can you talk to me, just maybe that could be just me misinterpreting, but just talk to me about some of those themes.
No, absolutely. That is a writing style that I like to put to use lyrically. A lot of the lyricism is written from a first person's perspective and then given to a third person, in Sunburst, that's basically me talking to myself and then my parents' perspective as well. Or in Granule, the self-titled track, that's totally from a parent's perspective.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what are so is this kind of a one cohesive kind of narrative record for you then?
Somewhat.
Okay. Can you tell me a little bit about that narrative you were trying to string through over those songs?
So the narrative, it kind of, it kind of follows a character, be it myself or some fictional character, and then struggles they've gone through and have kind of come out on top with the help of others.
Okay.
I guess. The help of certain important relationships in their life and how they've come out. And persevered through those hardships.
Yeah, it makes me think of the closer song "Gaze," which really is it's "Gazed," excuse me. Which given how it opens with elation and some of those lyrics, like the "Oh brother, what have I done?" and like some of that processing, and then it comes out to this like really anthemic like sense of peace almost towards the end, where like all the guitars are like tremolo picked, like open chords, and just that like those final lines. Like that "I'll wake you up when we're home" and like stuff like that.
Yeah, that song really came out as a that's definitely our lighter anthem song.
That's a power ballad.
It's a power ballad.
No, it's cool. And you know, it's funny too, like the way the songs were all strung up on the album was really just like they're not really in the order they were written by any regard either. We just kind of was written pretty earlier in the process of the album writing, and it just like when we kind of had all the songs together, we're like, hey, this is the closer. Like this is just like a big like epic kind of closing tune.
Feels like you're putting a period at the end of it.
Yeah. And so yeah, we kind of just we wrote them all, and when we started just playing them in a certain order, it just like worked out that this is how we felt they should all feel on the album, and then lyrically it all worked out in regard to that as well. It was really all just like kind of all fell into place for us.
Gotcha. I do want to ask. Sorry, Wyatt, go ahead.
I think it probably helped us put in sequencing because the way we write, whether intentionally or just the way it worked out, was for the most part the songs were completely 100% done as instrumentals before we even started to put vocals on them.
Okay.
Yep.
So we already had this kind of the subconscious emotional flow of it, of just the music. And I'm guessing, Gordon, contradict me if this is not true, but I would guess that would help Gordon then as he's crafting his narrative and his lyrics to know, like, okay, we're kind of, this is the through line we're already doing, and we can kind of match it up. But I don't know if I'm not in his head. I don't know, but
no, absolutely. I certainly try to match the tone of the instrumentation with the lyricism and vocal style.
Okay. All right, Gordon, are you like the sole lyricist then in the band?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So did you have you mentioned, since Wyatt's talking about how all the instrumentals were done and you have this like you wanted to match obviously the lyrics to the songs, did you have this kind of arc in your head, or at least this general idea of how you wanted this album to like play out thematically as you were going along, or was it just it's there, it's working, I'll just go for it, and it just kind of later came together?
Somewhat both.
Okay. Yeah.
In a sense, like I have my trusty notebook filled with lyrics, poems, what have you, free writing. A few of the songs I actually wrote lyrically about 2 or 3 months after we recorded the instrumentation. They were just, I was kind of struggling to find words for them. And yeah, I guess I did kind of have a general idea of what sort of narrative I wanted to give these songs and a general theme of the album lyrically. And that was telling a story, I guess.
What songs were the ones you wrote after everything was tracked?
Fever Dream and Exit Music for an Eclipse.
Okay.
Yeah.
I do want to ask, you have your third track on the record, Rivet, is an instrumental. I wondered why you placed it where you placed it, because usually when I think of instrumental tracks, or kind of, I don't want to say segue, because I guess when listening to your music, it's not like you're like doing chapters when you do like certain things. I was just wondering why so early in the album, and why pick it there when sequencing.
That one was written at the same time as Sunburst, the song that follows after it. Both songs have a capo on the 4th fret. So,
when we played them live, they would kind of naturally flow.
Gotcha.
Yeah, when we were playing those songs live, it just worked to do that, because it's like, oh, we already have the capo on, let's just go on to the next song. But yeah, I mean, I think right there, it is kind of interesting that we have like an instrumental track, like third song in, but it is kind of like the intro segue to the next song, Sunburst. So that was kind of like connecting those songs together. When that song ends, Sunburst begins. So that was why it was placed where it was. It just kind of worked out, and I think again that we didn't really have all the songs lined up just the way they did. That's just kind of how we played them, and we just liked how the order went. And that's just where it was placed, and it ended up just remaining instrumental. The working title for it was just Jam.
Jam.
Jam. I mean, we all just everybody's got like a solo in that song, and we're all just rocking. So it was just called Jam.
And I think, but it kind of, when I was listening to the album, it kind of works. That it's 9 tracks. It kind of feels like 3 acts. The first 3 songs, tonally, not necessarily lyrically, but tonally, are very bright, kind of poppy, for lack of a better term. And then you have the 1, 2, 3 of Sunburst, Quiet, and Exit music, which are thematically and I think mood-wise far and away the darkest stretch of the album.
Yeah.
And then you kind of have the denouement where you're moving towards resolution with Gaze. And I don't think that was not intentional, I don't think, but it kind of just worked out that way.
Yeah.
And I like it.
Did a lot of the sequencing for the record come from you playing these songs live? Because I only ask because you mentioned Rivet goes into Sunburst due to just the fact that it's capoed 4th fret, but did that kind of a lot of how that record gets sequenced come that way?
Somewhat. Definitely with Rivet and Sunburst. Let's just went together so well, and it was so convenient with the 4th fret capo. Gazed, we definitely ended up closing a lot of sets with that as well. So,
and I think partially that one got segregated in live sets because it required Jason to switch to a 7-string guitar.
Okay.
So we'd always end with it instead of having to switch back and forth in the middle of a set.
Gotta get yourself a roadie to toss you guitars between.
That's the goal.
The goal.
I mean, when we were early on in writing this, I insisted upon using a bass 6.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Right. It did not work.
Oh.
So I suggest it was so bad.
It was pretty awful.
There were 2 or 3 shows where I was switching back and forth every song. I was like, I want to be a real guitarist and play chords. They're shredding.
What about the bass 6 didn't work for it?
The tone.
Like shit.
Okay, if it sounds like garbage, it's not going to work. Gotcha.
Yeah, it did make it onto the record.
Okay.
In Quiet, where it breaks down to after the first chorus, where it goes to kind of that slow build with the slow chords, and Jake's just doing kind of the tom build up.
Yeah.
Those chords are a bass 6.
Nice.
And then Jason and Gordon are doing the noodly stuff on top of it. So that's the only part I ended up using, but half of the record was written on a 6, and then I realized it sounds better on a 4.
Yeah. With the time you spent, because it seems like reading through the Facebook post, it almost sounded like with the fact that it took the number of years it took to get to releasing the record, and then over time recording it in stages. Did you find it hard coming back to some of this material over But you guys you played enough out that it's not like you suddenly were gone working on other things and then coming back to this record over and over again.
Yeah, I mean, we've been playing these songs live. I mean, the whole last year. We did a 2-week residency at Cadence last summer where we played. One show was our first 2 EPs, and then the next was we played Granule, which wasn't even titled at the time. We just were let's just play the album because we had all the songs written, and we
had the sequence.
Yeah, we've been sprinkling them in our live set over the last year, and so we've just always stayed on top of them. And it's funny putting out an album that's new to people who haven't really heard us before or heard our music before, and they hear this album for the first time. It's new music, but I mean, and this is the case with a lot of bands. I think it's old music to us now. We've been playing songs for so long. It's it just feels good to finally have it out and kind of end that chapter and kind of now to move on to the next thing. But
yeah. you put out the music video and the lead single for the record, Exit Music, in August, if I'm remembering my dates right. I didn't write my date down. Mm-hmm. Which was like all the footage for that shot while you were recording?
That was the actual tracking session.
Okay.
We really were recording. That.
I was wondering because it was like, this seems like a cool playthrough, but also I'm like, you guys are way too focused to be like just kind of vibing with the song you wrote.
Yeah, no, we were actually recording.
Okay. Did you record most of the recording sessions then on captured on video, or did you just like you wanted to put out Exit Music as like a video like that, and you just brought in a film like a filmmaker?
Adam actually did that just as part of his rate for recording with him.
Oh, really?
We didn't get every song, but I know we got at least 2 or 3 others where the video exists that we might put out at some point.
Okay.
Yeah, Adam just hit record on the console and then grabbed his camera and came out and just filmed us while we were tracking.
Okay. Why Exit Music out of all of the songs? Why not like either Granule or something like that? What about Exit Music stood out to you as a band to put out as kind of that lead single?
I think it was different enough from our like other stuff. I mean, like if people had seen us live over the last few years, they've definitely heard, or the last year or so, they've heard this song before, mm-hmm. or whether they know it or not. But I think it just felt like a good, just kind of representation of what the new sound that we were kind of going with mm-hmm. on this album, and like the direction that this album kind of was going with, a lot more dreamy, kind of vibey stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And it just kind of felt like that would be the right way to promote the album at least.
Yep, I would agree.
Okay. We're kind of coming into our last few questions here. So I was wondering, unfortunately you can't obviously put out a record when we can't play shows or go and see live music. So what's kind of the future goal for Vin? I know you're playing a live set with Trita later, but I don't know if this interview will come out in time for that. But what's kind of the future for Vin right now?
Right.
Right.
Writing. We're already writing.
Another
Jason
record.
has a ton of riffs and songs that he's been working on, and
okay.
By the time we finish the dang thing, shows will be back.
Be close to another album by the time we're able to play again. But
And then finally, where can people find Vin online to listen to your music and stuff like that? Get connected with y'all.
Yeah, we're on all of the streaming platforms. So we're on Spotify. I think you can find us on Apple Music, but we're lumped in with Japanese like hip-hop.
Anime rapper. If you go into any streaming platform and if you type in Vin Granule, it'll come up.
Yeah.
We're also on Bandcamp if you want to give us money.
Bandcamp preferably.
Yeah.
Bandcamp preferably.
Awesome. Well, Wyatt, Gordon, and Jason, thank you so much for taking some time to talk with me here on this Saturday morning.
Thanks
for having us.
Thank you so much.
You have very good questions. These are great.
The Ear Coffee Podcast is a companion to the blog of the same name. If you like this episode, please leave us a rate and review so we can stand out among the other music podcasts. You can follow us at Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram @EarCoffee. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.